The sky above Vetra was always gray. The clouds never moved fast, and the sun never showed its full face. The wind was cold, not strong, but always there like a quiet breath that never stopped. The buildings in the capital city were tall and smooth, made of white stone that glowed in the dark. There was no shouting, no laughter, no music in the streets. Everything on Vetra was quiet, still, and cold. Tom stood outside the landing station, rubbing his hands together. His breath came out like soft smoke in the cold air. He had arrived only an hour ago, but he already missed the warmth of Earth. His jacket was thick, but the wind still found ways to touch his skin. "I guess this is home for now," he said softly to himself. He looked around. Tall veterans walked past him in silence. They wore long robes that moved like water. Their skin was pale with a soft shimmer. Their eyes were bright, almost glowing, but not with heat, only with cold light. They didn't look at him. They didn't greet him. It was like he didn't exist. Tom was sent as a peace ambassador. After years of quiet talks, Earth and Vetra had finally agreed to start peaceful exchange. One human would live on Vetra for 3 months. One veteran would go to Earth. They would study each other's ways and build a bridge of trust. He had trained for this for a long time, but now that he was here, he wasn't sure he was ready. Then he saw her. A tall veteran woman stood near the white steps. She wore a silver robe, her hands folded in front of her. Her face was calm, without a smile, but her eyes were watching him, bright and still. She stepped forward. "Are you Tom?" Her voice was quiet, smooth like glass. "Yes, that's me. I am Isla. I have been chosen to guide you," Tom smiled. "Nice to meet you, Isla." She gave a small nod, no smile, no handshake. Just silence. Tom wanted to say more, but she was already turning. "Come, your room is ready." They walked through wide white halls. The air inside was warmer, but the silence made it feel cold again. No footsteps echoed. Even their shoes made no sound on the polished floor. Tom looked at Isla as they walked. Her long hair was tied back. Her face looked peaceful, but it was hard to read her. She moved like she was floating, her hands always close to her body. She didn't look at him again, so Tom said, trying to start a conversation, "Has a human ever come here before?" "No." "And have you ever met a human before?" "No." He waited for her to ask something back, but she didn't. The silence returned. They reached a simple room with smooth walls and a bed that looked like a soft stone. Isla pressed her hand on a glowing panel, and the door opened. "This is where you will stay." "Thanks. It looks nice." "Very clean." Another small nod. "There's food in the drawer. It has been made for your body. If you need help, press the light." Tom stepped inside, then turned around. "Will I see you again?" "I will return tomorrow. I will begin your lessons." Then she left. Tom sat on the edge of the bed and looked around. Everything was silent. No clock ticking, no hum of machines. Just quiet. Too much quiet. He let out a breath and laid back. "Okay, Tom," he whispered. "Time to make some history." The next morning, Isla arrived exactly on time. She showed Tom the learning room, the dining space, and the walking garden where wind passed between tall silver trees. Everywhere they went, no one smiled, no one waved, but no one was rude either. Just quiet. Over the next few days, Isla taught him about veteran history. Their people had no wars for over 500 years. They solved problems through silence and light. They believed emotion should not control action. Touch was seen as a private thing, only used in rare healing or family moments. Tom listened carefully. "So, you don't shake hands?" "No." "You don't hug?" "No, not even with friends." "We do not use touch to show care." Tom looked thoughtful. "Interesting. On Earth, it's different." "I know," Isla said softly. "Your people connect through hands. Through warmth, we connect through stillness." Tom smiled. "I'll try to learn your way." For the first time, Isla's eyes rested on his face a little longer. That is good. Days turned into weeks. Tom started getting used to the cold air and quiet voices. He stopped trying to talk all the time. He began to notice small things, how a veteran nodded slowly to show agreement, or how their eyes softened when they liked something. Isla was always there. Calm, silent, steady. But Tom noticed her watching him sometimes, just for a second longer. Then one afternoon, he tripped on a step and almost fell. Ayla reached out quickly, but stopped just before touching his arm. Her hand froze mid-air. Then she slowly pulled it back. "I'm okay," Tom said with a laugh. Isla looked at him. Her face was unreadable, but her eyes looked a little different, like clouds before a gentle storm. "I forgot," she said quietly. "You do not fear touch." Tom smiled. "It's okay, I understand your ways," she nodded. Then she turned and walked ahead, but something in her steps was different. A little slower. A little unsure. Tom followed, silent now, but full of questions. He didn't understand her world yet, but he knew one thing. She was not cold. Not really. Tom sat near the tall glass window in the learning room. Outside, soft white lights moved across the sky like slow stars. It was the veteran season of quiet light, a time when the planet's two moons passed close together. It brought stillness to the air, even more than usual. Inside the room, Tom held a small book that Isla had given him. It was written in the veteran language, but she had added translations underneath. He was trying to read a short poem. The words were gentle, like water falling on stone. Isla stood across the room, watching him silently. She had been teaching him veteran writing for 2 weeks. Tom wasn't the fastest learner, but he tried hard and he asked good questions. Today, he didn't ask anything. He just read quietly. His lips moved a little as he spoke the words to himself. Isla noticed that. She had never seen anyone move their lips while reading before. Veterans read with the mind only. But somehow, the small movement looked soft. Peaceful. "Do you understand that part?" she asked. Tom looked up. "I think so. It says, we listen best when we say nothing, right?" She nodded. "Correct." He smiled. "I like that." Isla stepped closer. She stopped near the table but didn't sit. It is from an old veteran story. A child lost in the dark finds a light by listening, not by shouting. "That's beautiful," Tom said. Isla looked down at his hand, resting on the table near the book. His fingers tapped the sides slowly, maybe without thinking. She looked away quickly. It was not polite to stare at someone's hands. Not on Vetra, but she had noticed something else lately. Tom's presence made the room feel not warmer, but less cold. She didn't understand it at first. It wasn't about his words or actions. He never broke their rules. He never tried to touch her. And yet, whenever he was near, something quiet inside her chest would rise. Veterans didn't believe in fast feelings. They trained their hearts to stay calm. But Ayla's calmness had started to change. That evening, they walked through the soft light garden. The sky above was pale silver, and small glowing plants lit the path. Tom looked around with wonder. "It's like walking through stars," he said. Isla walked beside him, her hands folded in front of her as always. "We grow these during this season only. They disappear after the moons move apart. They're amazing," Tom said. Then he looked at her carefully. "You don't talk much, but when you do, it always sounds important." "I choose words with care," Isla replied. He laughed gently. "I wish I could do that. I talk too much. You are learning to be quiet." Tom nodded. "Because I want to understand your world, and you." Isla looked at him. For a moment, she said nothing. Then, "I do not understand your world yet. I have read about humans. You use words to fill silence. You use touch to show care. But here, we show care by not touching. It is a different way." Tom walked slowly, looking up at the glowing trees. Back home, people hug when they're sad. They hold hands when they're happy. But I'm learning that feelings don't need hands. Sometimes just standing close to someone, it's enough. Hila said nothing, but her pace slowed. They walked together without words for several minutes. The silence felt full, not empty. The next day, Hila showed Tom the central hall of thoughts, a large round building where veterans shared knowledge in silence. The walls were made of shifting glass, and inside, glowing shapes floated in the air. Each shape told a story through light, color, and slow motion. This is how we tell our deepest stories, Hila said. Without voice. Tom watched a glowing red thread rise into the air, then gently break into a shower of soft blue dots. He didn't fully understand the meaning, but he felt something in his chest move. I don't know why, he whispered. But that feels like goodbye. Hila turned to look at him. That is what it means, Tom smiled softly. I guess some things don't need words. Hila wanted to agree, but the feeling in her chest was growing again. She didn't have a name for it. It was not pain, not fear. Something gentle and deep. That night, she sat alone in her home and opened the human book Tom had given her last week. It was a collection of Earth poems. The lines were strange, sometimes too full of emotion. But one part stayed in her mind. He never touched me, but I broke like morning light. His eyes knew my silence, and that was enough. She read it again and again. Then she closed the book and stood up. She looked at her hands. Still, quiet, calm. But her heart was not still. The next morning, when Tom arrived for lessons, Hila was already there. She had prepared a new kind of lesson, one about emotions. It was not usual for veterans to speak of such things, but she wanted to understand what was happening inside her. I want to talk about feelings, she said. Tom blinked. Oh, that's a big topic. Yes, Hila replied. But I think we must begin. They sat together, no books, no tools. Just quiet air. Hila asked questions. What does happiness feel like for a human? What does care feel like when there is no touch? Why do some people cry when they are not sad? Tom answered the best he could. He used simple words and small stories from his life. He told her about watching rain with his grandmother, about sitting beside a friend without speaking, about a moment when someone held the door for him and smiled. Hila listened closely. Her eyes watched his, not his hands. But even without touch, something passed between them. When the lesson ended, Tom stood to leave. He gave a small nod. Thank you for today. It felt different, but good. Hila nodded too. She opened her mouth as if to say something else, but stopped. She didn't know the right words yet, but deep inside she knew. Something quiet had changed. The Festival of Lights came once every 2 veteran seasons. It was a quiet event, held without music, without sound, and without speaking. Still, it was one of the most important events in all of Vetra. On this day, the skies filled with soft glowing threads of light that floated down from the sky like long ribbons made of stars. The city became a sea of pale color. Nothing was loud. Everything was soft. Tom had never seen anything like it. Hila met him at the edge of the sky garden where the festival would begin. She wore a robe of soft silver, her hair tied behind her, in a way he had never seen before. Her eyes seemed brighter under the sky filled with floating lights. You look. Tom started to say something, but then stopped. He remembered the veteran way. No big words, no loud praise. Just being present was enough. So instead, he simply said, Thank you for inviting me. Hila nodded once. You are the first human to witness this. I'm honored. They walked together along the garden path. All around them, veterans stood in stillness, watching the sky. No one talked. No one moved quickly. They just waited. Then, slowly, the story began. Above them, lights in the sky began to move in patterns. One long blue thread drifted down and circled a group of smaller green lights. The green lights rose, then faded. A soft orange glow spread across the sky. Tom whispered, "What does it mean?" "It is an old story," Isla replied quietly. "The blue light is the traveler. The green ones are his dreams. He loses them. But in the end, he becomes part of the sky." Tom watched closely. The lights made no sound, but they made him feel something deep inside. He didn't understand everything, but he didn't need to. The light said enough. People around them began to move in slow circles, a kind of silent dance. No music played, yet their feet followed a rhythm only they seemed to know. Isla turned to him. Tom hesitated. "I don't know the steps." "There are no wrong steps," she said. So he followed her. They moved slowly. Across the soft glowing ground, the lights above gently changing colors. Tom felt strange at first, unsure of where to place his feet. But Isla's movements were calm, steady. He followed her lead. They didn't touch. Not even once. But walking beside her, matching her pace, Tom felt something stronger than touch. He looked at her profile, her calm face, her glowing eyes. She looked ahead, not at him. But her closeness was like a quiet song he could hear without sound. After some time, they stopped walking. The dance ended, and the lights above slowly faded. People returned to stillness. Tom turned toward Isla. "That was the most peaceful thing I've ever done. It is our way of telling stories. With light, with movement, with presence." Tom nodded. "I understand that better now." They stood quietly for a while. The sky turned a soft purple, and a cold wind brushed across their faces. Tom's hand stayed by his side. Isla's arms were still folded as always. Yet both felt full, like they had shared something important. Later that night, back in his room, Tom wrote in his small notebook. It was something he had started doing every evening since arriving on Vetra. "Today, I didn't speak much. I didn't laugh loudly. I didn't even touch a hand. But I felt like I was part of something." Ayla didn't smile, but I felt warmth from her. The veteran way is quiet, but it speaks in other ways. I think I'm starting to understand it. He closed the notebook, placed it under his pillow, and lay down. That night, he dreamed of light and silence. And Isla's eyes. The next day, Isla met him as usual for their lesson. But something was different in her tone. She seemed slower, thoughtful. "I have something to show you," she said. Tom followed her through the quiet halls to a private viewing room. The walls inside were soft glass, showing soft glowing colors. In the center was a small circle of stone where two people could sit. "This room is used to share silent memory," Isla said. Tom sat down on one side. Isla sat across from him. She closed her eyes. "Do not speak, just watch." From the walls, soft images appeared, faded shapes. Pieces of memories. A small veteran child holding a stone. A tall figure standing in the rainlight. Then a hand reaching out and stopping just before touching another. The story was not fully clear, but Tom could feel the emotion behind it. Longing, care, stillness. A connection that could not be touched but was still real. The images faded. Isla opened her eyes. "That was your memory?" Tom asked gently. She nodded. "It felt strong." "It was," she said. "And now I have new ones from you." Tom didn't speak. His chest felt full again. Not heavy, not painful, just full. "I don't know if your people would understand that," he said after a moment. "Back on Earth, silence is often seen as empty. But here, it's full of meaning." "Yes," Isla said. "And meaning needs time." As the weeks passed, their connection grew. They still never touched. They didn't speak many words. But the way they moved together, the way Isla waited for Tom's thoughts, and the way he noticed small changes in her eyes, it all said enough. One morning, while they walked in the early gray light, Tom said softly, I'll be going back to Earth in a few weeks. Isla stopped walking for just a moment. I know. There was silence. I'll miss this, Tom said. And I'll miss you. Isla turned her head slightly, her eyes resting on his face. We do not speak of missing, she said. I know, he replied. But sometimes silence feels like goodbye. She didn't answer. But she didn't walk away either. They stood together. No words, no hands, no promises, but both of them knew something had changed forever. Tom sat alone in the garden of soft lights. The sky above was clear, and the 2 moons of Vetra floated peacefully. Their light touched the tops of the silver trees, making them glow like gentle fire dot. It had been almost 2 months since he arrived. On Vetra, he had stopped missing the noise of Earth. He no longer wished for music, crowds, or hugs. He had learned to enjoy silence and stillness, but tonight something felt different inside him. He didn't know why. He only knew that Isla had not come to meet him like she usually did. He looked up at the sky and whispered, "Are you okay, Isla?" Across the city, Isla sat in her quiet room. In front of her was a small screen showing pages of human culture images, words and simple actions from Earth. She had been studying them secretly, ever since the night of the light dance dot she watched. A short clip of 2 humans sitting beside each other. They smiled, said nothing, and then one gently took the other's hand. Isla paused the clip. Why do they do that? She wondered. In Vetran culture, touch was a rare thing. It was used only by family members during healing or in times of deep connection. Touch was seen as too loud, too close. But humans used it every day: hands, hugs, shoulders, arms. It seemed so natural to them. So normal and somehow comforting. She placed her hand gently on her chest. Her heartbeat was calm, but she still felt a small ache she could not name. She thought about Tom, about the way he looked at her with warm eyes, about the way he never tried to touch her, but always made her feel seen. That feeling had grown stronger each day, and now it was almost too big to keep inside. The next morning, Isla returned to the learning room where Tom was waiting. He smiled when he saw her, but his smile was softer than usual. I missed our walk last night, he said. I needed time, Isla replied. Tom nodded. Is everything okay? I was learning about your ways. He looked surprised. My ways? Yes. The human way. Tom leaned back. What do you think? It is different, she said. Louder, closer, but not wrong. They sat in silence for a while. Then Isla spoke again. I read that humans cry when they feel too much. Tom nodded slowly. Yes, sometimes feelings grow so big they come out in tears. We do not cry, Isla said. We stay still. That's okay. Everyone feels differently. I want to understand you more, she said quietly. Even if your way is not mine. Tom looked at her, carefully choosing his words. Isla, you already understand more than anyone ever has. You've never tried to change me. You've just been with me. That's all I ever needed. She looked down at her hands. We do not hold hands, she said. Tom smiled kindly. I know, and yet. She paused, struggling to find the right words. Sometimes I feel like I want to, not because I must, but because it feels right. Tom didn't reach for her. He didn't move closer. He simply said, that's enough for me. Later that day, they visited the memory hall. It was empty except for them. The glowing walls showed old veteran records, images of peaceful events, silent meetings, and glowing skies. Isla showed Tom a special panel that let visitors share their thoughts. She placed her hand on the glass and a blue light rose in the air. Slowly, shapes formed like soft drawings made of mist. The image showed 2 people walking side by side. No contact, just presence. Underneath, words appeared. Care is not always shown through hands. Sometimes it lives in quiet steps. Tom watched the scene and felt his chest grow warm. Did you make that? He asked, Isla nodded once. I did, for you. Tom smiled, but his voice was low. That means a lot to me. He wanted to say more, but didn't. Sometimes silence was better. That evening, they walked again, just like old times. The light trees swayed gently in the wind. Isla, Tom said, I have a question. Yes? If I were a veteran, do you think we would still have met this way? She thought for a moment. If you were veteran, you would still be you. So yes, I think so. He smiled at her answer. And if you were human, he said, I think you'd still be you too. They walked a little longer before Isla stopped. I had a dream last night, she said. We were standing under the festival lights. You reached out your hand. I didn't step back. Tom's breath caught slightly. Did it feel wrong? No, Isla said softly. It felt calm, not because of touch, but because of the space between us. It was full. Tom nodded. I think some people never find that kind of peace, not even with touch. I think I am starting to understand your way, she whispered. And I'm learning yours, he replied. The stars above were brighter that night. The moons of Vetra were moving farther apart, and the season of quiet light would soon end. Tom knew he had only a few weeks left on Vetra. He also knew that something important had grown between him and Isla, something unspoken, gentle, and strong. No hands had reached across the space. No words had said love. But in their silence, they had built something deep, something real. The two moons of Vetra began to drift apart, and with them, the season of quiet light slowly ended. The glowing trees in the walking garden started to dim. The air became colder. The skies turned more gray than silver. Tom stood near the window in his room, looking outside. The city was still as always, but something inside him felt restless. Only 2 weeks remained before he had to return to Earth. He had known this from the beginning. It was part of the agreement. 3 months, 1 mission. Learn, connect, and return. But he hadn't expected to feel this way. He hadn't expected someone like Isla. That morning, Isla met him in the garden. She stood near the soft stone path, her silver robe moving slightly in the wind. Her expression was calm, but something in her eyes had changed. There was a quiet weight behind them. Tom walked toward her slowly. I got a message from Earth today, he said. Isla nodded. I know. The new ambassador is arriving soon. Tom looked down for a moment. Then he spoke softly. They're sending a full team next time. Scientists, diplomats, translators. I guess my job is almost done. Isla didn't answer right away. She turned to look at the silver trees, now losing their light. You have done well, she finally said. You listened, you respected. You did not ask for more than what was given. Tom gave a small smile. I learned that from you. They began walking, as they always did. But this time, their steps were slower. I don't know what to say. Tom said after a while, you do not need to say anything. That's the veteran way, he said with a gentle laugh. Yes, Isla replied. But today, I will break it. Tom turned his head, surprised. I want to speak, she said. Not with light, not with silence. With words. He stopped walking. So did she. I am not sure what this feeling is, Isla said softly. It is not fear, it is not pain. But it stays inside me when I see you. Tom listened quietly. I think about your voice when you are not here. I remember your questions, your stories, your gentle smile. You never touched my hand. Yet something inside me feels moved. Tom looked into her bright eyes. They were not cold anymore. Isla, he said, I feel the same. She nodded slowly. I do not want you to leave, she said. His breath caught. Then maybe I can stay. No, she said, shaking her head. You must return. That is the plan. That is the way. Tom looked down. I know. The wind passed between them, soft and cold. Neither of them moved closer. But the space between them felt heavy, like something unspoken was waiting. "I don't want to forget any of this," Tom said. "Not the light, not the quiet, not you." "You will not," Isla replied, "because it is now a part of you." That evening, Tom sat in his room, unable to sleep. He took out his notebook and wrote, "Today felt like goodbye." But it wasn't spoken. I never held her hand. I never said the word love. And still, my chest feels full, so full I might break. She told me she didn't want me to leave. That was enough. Maybe love doesn't always begin with touch. Maybe it begins with stillness. He closed the notebook and stared at the ceiling. Outside, the sky was dark, but he could still see the soft outline of the moons through the clouds. The next day, Ela met him again. This time, she brought something small in her hands, a piece of folded white cloth. "This is for you," she said. Tom opened it carefully. Inside was a carved figure made of soft blue stone. It was the shape of two beings standing side by side, with light connecting them. "I made this," Isla said. "It is a symbol. No hands, just presence." Tom held it carefully. "It's beautiful. It is how I see us," she said. Tom placed the figure inside his coat. "I'll take it back with me. I'll keep it near always." They walked again. But they didn't talk much. There was no need. Their silence said enough. At the end of the walk, Tom stopped. "Isla," he said, "can I ask you something?" "Yes. Back when we first met, did you think we would become this close?" "No," she said, "but I am glad we did." He smiled. "Me too." Isla looked at him quietly. "You once said humans use touch to show care." "Yes. I still cannot give you that," she said. "You don't need to," he replied. But still, he saw her hands move slightly, like they wanted to reach out, but didn't. She pulled them back and folded them again. And yet Tom felt undone. Not by touch, but by the nearness. By the trust. By the space between them that was now full of everything. That night, Tom watched the sky again from his window. The stars above were quiet. The city was quiet. Even his heart was quiet now, but not empty. He knew he would leave soon. He knew this chapter would end. But what Isla had given him was something he would carry forever. A love not made from holding hands or spoken promises, but from being still, together. Tom stood in the quiet learning room, looking at the table where he and Isla had shared so many lessons. The books were still there. The small glass screen still showed soft veteran words floating across it. The light from the ceiling was dim. Like the end of a long day, he reached into his bag and pulled out a small object wrapped in cloth. It was a wooden carving, something he had been working on in the evenings, little by little. He had made it by hand, using a small tool gifted to him by a veteran artist. The carving showed the bridge in the garden where he and Isla often walked. The shape was simple, but he had spent a long time smoothing every edge. At the center of the bridge were two small figures, just shapes. Not detailed, but standing close together. Tom placed it gently on the table. "I hope she likes it," he whispered. That evening, Isla came as promised. The sky outside was soft gray, and the wind had grown colder. She entered the room quietly, her silver robe moving gently as she walked. Tom stood and smiled. "I made something for you." He handed her the wrapped carving. She took it in her hands and opened the cloth slowly. Her eyes rested on the wooden shape. She traced it with her fingers, very gently, as if the gift could break from her touch. "The bridge," she said softly. "Yes," Tom said. "It's where I started to understand you. It's where I started to feel something I didn't have a name for." Isla continued looking at the carving. "You made this with your hands?" "Yes. It's how humans give part of their heart. Through what we make, what we give." Isla held the carving close to her chest for a moment. Her hands were still folded, but her voice was not as quiet as before. "In our way," she said, "we do not give gifts with hands. We give through presence, through being." She looked at Tom, her eyes gentle and bright. "But today, I want to do both. Tom watched as she stepped forward, just a little closer. She didn't touch him. Her hands stayed at her sides. But she stood close enough for him to feel her warmth. She placed the carving back in its cloth and held it to her heart. I will keep this always, she said. Tom nodded, his voice low. Then we'll both have something. They sat down together, side by side, but not touching. The room around them was still. Only the wind outside moved, pressing gently against the glass windows. I keep thinking, Tom said, about the day I first met you. I didn't know what to expect. I thought veterans were cold. I thought I'd feel alone here. Were you wrong? Ella asked softly. Yes, he said. I was wrong. You weren't cold, just quiet, and your quiet helped me hear myself better. Isla looked down. You helped me feel what I never understood before. They both sat in silence for a long moment. I don't think I'll ever forget this place, Tom said. The sky, the light, the silence, you. You will return to Earth, Isla said. To your noise, your warmth, your people. Yes, Tom replied, but I will carry your world inside me. Ela turned her head toward him. And I will carry you. That night, as they walked one last time through the garden, Tom noticed the trees no longer glowed. The season had ended. The cold had returned. But the path still remembered their steps. Isla stopped near the edge of the bridge, where the wind blew the strongest. This place, she said, holds something now. It is not the same, Tom nodded. Because of us. They stood together, looking at the silver river below. I will not ask you to stay, Isla said. I know, Tom replied, and I will not try to forget you. He smiled. That's enough. As they began to walk back, Isla paused once more. I learned a new word from your language, she said. Oh? She looked at him quietly. Then she said the word in soft, clear English. Goodbye. Tom's heart tightened. He stepped a little closer. Still, he didn't reach for her. He didn't try to change the space between them. But his voice was full of care. We don't say goodbye when we hope to meet again. What do you say then? Tom smiled gently. We say, see you soon. Isla looked at him for a long time. Then she nodded. See you soon. The next morning, Tom packed his bag. The carved figure Ela gave him was wrapped safely. He took one last look at the room, then stepped outside. Isla was waiting for him at the transport gate. No words were spoken. She simply stood there, calm as always. When the gate opened and the soft blue light appeared, Tom turned to her one last time. Thank you, he said. Ela gave a small nod. And thank you. As he stepped into the gate, she raised her hand, not to touch, but simply to send a signal. A farewell. He did the same. The gate closed slowly, and the light faded. That night, Ela stood in her room, holding the wooden carving in her hands. She placed it on a small shelf near her reading light, and for the first time, in the quiet of her home, she whispered one word to herself. Tom. It was soft. It was simple, but it filled the silence. Tom sat quietly by the window of the Earth shuttle. The stars outside blinked slowly, just like they always did. But everything felt different now. The stars were the same, the ship was the same, but something inside him had changed. He touched the cloth in his coat pocket. Inside was a thin silver ribbon. Isla had placed it in his hand before he stepped into the transport gate. She had not said a word when she gave it, but he had understood. It meant, remember, Earth was full of sound. Cars, machines, voices, city lights. Tom walked through the crowded streets and felt like a stranger in his own home. People were kind, some smiled at him, some didn't notice him. But none of them felt like her. He tried to return to his old life. His old job welcomed him back. His friends asked questions about the veteran world. He gave simple answers. He told them the skies were soft, the light was silver, and the silence was peaceful. He didn't say much about Isla. It felt too big to explain, too soft for loud words. At night, he sat near his small desk and opened a book in the veteran language. The words reminded him of her voice, slow, calm, clear. He read out loud sometimes, just to feel the sound in the room. One day, he took out a piece of wood and began carving again. He didn't know what he was making. He just moved his hands. The way they had moved when Isla watched him the first time. His tools made soft scratches, and he worked for hours. It made him feel close to the quiet again. It made him feel like part of that other world still lived in his hands. Months passed. The seasons on Earth changed. Flowers returned, then faded. Rain fell, then stopped. The city grew louder as summer came, but Tom remained still inside. One evening, as he walked through a quiet park, he stopped near a small bridge. It wasn't like the one in the veteran garden. It was made of metal and stone. But still, when the wind moved through the trees and the sky turned soft blue, it reminded him. He stood there a long time, and then he whispered, Ayla. Far away, on the veteran world, Isla sat by her window, holding Tom's wooden carving in her hands. She had moved it many times, sometimes to the shelf, sometimes to her table, and sometimes to her pocket. She liked to carry it when she walked in the garden. The other veterans had asked her why she kept the object close. She simply said, it was a gift from someone who saw me. They didn't ask more. They understood. Or maybe they didn't. It didn't matter. Isla would often pause near the bridge, looking at the river below. The water still moved the same way. But it was different to her now. It had once reflected only stars. Now, it reflected memory. One day, Isla was called to speak to a new group of humans arriving for cultural exchange. They were excited, curious, asking many questions. Isla smiled kindly, but her answers were simple and short. After the session, one of the younger human visitors asked her, do you know anyone from Earth? She thought for a moment. Then she said, yes, I knew someone who brought warmth without touch, who spoke without noise, who gave without asking. The human smiled. Sounds special. Yes, Isla said. He was. Tom never stopped thinking about her. He didn't write letters. He didn't send messages. The veteran ways were not built for long-distance words. They believed in stillness, not chasing. In presence, not constant reaching. But he still carved. One day, he created something new. It was not a bridge. It was a figure, a simple shape of a person standing still, arms at their sides, and face turned to the sky. It was her. Not in detail, but in feeling. He placed the figure next to the first one, the carving of the bridge with two shadows, and beside it, he placed the silver ribbon. Years passed. Tom grew older. His hair began to gray at the edges. His voice grew slower, but his hands still carved, and his eyes still looked up at the stars as if waiting for a message. He never felt empty, even when he missed her. Even when silence grew around him, he felt full, because of what had been shared, because of what had not been said. He had not held her in his arms, but she had stayed in his heart. And that, he knew, was enough. Back on the veteran world, Isla also aged. Her walk grew slower, and her speech more careful. But her eyes still held the same gentle light. The wooden carving remained by her window, just where the sunlight touched it each morning. One evening, as the sky turned silver again, Isla stood near the bridge. She closed her eyes, and she felt it again, the warmth beside her. Not from touch, not from sound, but from memory, from meaning, from the quiet space they once shared. Two worlds, two hearts. No promises, no claims. Just a moment that lasted across stars. He had not touched her, yet she had felt undone. Not broken, just changed, opened, heard, seen. And that, to both of them, was love.